Hey, I'm SJ. I'm just back from the school run and just was looking at my phone and read a little post that seems to be going viral today comparing controlled crying and sleep training to domestic abuse and a husband abusing his wife. I feel like I have to say something about it because I think it's just so terrible to compare something that a woman does out of love, out of total compassion, and most times out of kind of her own emotional needs and necessity when she's got to breaking point and is really desperate, to something as terrible as domestic abuse in an adult relationship. And I think it's really harmful for people to put this stuff out there. It's good to start the debate, and that's why I'm getting involved as well, to give the other side of it, because I did do controlled crying. It was a sleeping method that I chose out of many other options of sleep training. And I'm going to talk to you about why I did it and the kind of really scary incident that prompted me into sleep training. So I have got two little boys. Freddie is now 5 and Finn is now 2. He's here somewhere, so he'll pop up. And Freddie was fine at sleeping, but Finn was a total nightmare. He didn't sleep through until 16 months, and I'd gone back to work when he was 14 months old, and was basically just kind of at breaking point. But Finn was a great sleeper when he was little. We co-slept, I breastfed, I had a side-by-side cot, but at 4 months he developed really severe eczema, and it was a real nightmare. I was still exclusively breastfeeding, so they didn't know what had they said there was no real outward cause, but it meant that he couldn't sleep, and it meant I couldn't sleep, because I was so terrified of him scratching. So we got into this habit of me sleeping. Even though I bought really kind of special scratch mitts for eczema babies, I slept with my hands over his hands to prevent him from scratching himself in the night. And we did this, and obviously 4 months is a really kind of formative time, and he just got his sleep association was me holding his hands to get to sleep. And that continued then for the rest of the time. So a year later, he'd moved into a shared bedroom with his brother, and was just waking up all the time, and I had to sit next to his cot and hold his hands until he went off to sleep. It wasn't that he was just up once a night, he was basically up evening, night, and each time was taking me 25 to 30 minutes to get him to sleep by holding his hands. He would drift off in his own sweet time. I would go back to bed and obviously couldn't go to sleep waiting for the next cry, and it just affects your whole entire life. Your whole entire life just becomes pretty shit, to be honest, because you're up all night with the baby, you're busy all day, you're going off to work, and you kind of just feel like somehow your own life and your own well-being is totally gone. You know, I just felt I was going to quit my job. There was no possible way I could handle being up all night with the baby. Then one night came to crunch time. I was upstairs with Finn, putting him to bed, and I decided to put Finn to bed quite early so that I could have some one-to-one time with Freddie. He was 4 by this point, and like read him a story and things like that. So I'd taken Finn up and was sat patiently by his cot, holding his hands, and it was just taking forever and ever and ever. He would not drift off. He would drift off. I'd try to sneak out. He'd call me back. He finally started to drift off, and I was sat there, and I heard the front door go, and I thought, great, it's my husband home from work. But I didn't hear any voices, and I just had that immediate, I knew what had happened, that I knew he'd left the house. I mean, he's 4 years old, nothing like that had ever happened. I'd been upstairs for about half an hour. It was just too long to leave him kind of downstairs with his toys and the TV on. I ran down, front door open, no Freddie. Looked out, he'd stepped out the house. Luckily, we don't live with a road, but he stepped out the house, wandered down a bit to try and look for his dad, and it was just awful. I just pulled him back in. I didn't say a word to him. He just looked at me. I looked at him, and he realised I was just in shock, I think, putting both into bed, and I just was like, I cannot be sitting up there during the evenings trying to put this baby to sleep. It's dangerous. You know, I'd taken my eye off my 4-year-old for too long. You know, it just was, the whole thing wasn't working. So my husband said, okay, first thing, let's try to get a sleep trainer. So we went to a really reputable clinic. I'll put the details below, and found a sleep trainer called Evelyn. And she's not just a sleep trainer for babies, she's a sleep psychologist. And there's a lot of sleep trainers out there who aren't qualified, And you'll hear these horror stories about babies crying until they're sick, or parents kind of being told to be horrible to their kids. And, you know, that's not what sleep training is about if it's done properly. We found Evelyn to be so supportive. I had to fill in this diary, which I couldn't do because I was so sleepy. I kept forgetting to do it. But I had a long chat with her, a consultation, and she gave us 2 options we could do. She understood that the problem, like I understood, she said, you know what the problem is? It's you're holding his hand. I know that's the problem. It's still a problem. He's 2 and I hold his hand everywhere except for sleep. And she gave us 2 options. One was the, I've forgotten the name of it now, gradual retreat or controlled crying. And you know what? Finn was 16 months old, and I knew I couldn't sit next to him and gradually move away as he cried. If I was in the room, I was going to go to him. I love my baby and I'm very tactile, and it's distressing as anything to hear him cry. But I knew I needed to get this sorted for him and for me. He was overtired, I was overtired, the whole family was suffering. So I said, yep, I want to try the controlled crying. So the method is leave them for 5 minutes crying. Go in and say it's night time now, bedtime, very firmly, lie them back down and leave. You know the drill. Wait for 10 minutes, do the same. And we only ever had, I think, 10 minutes, no longer than that, you know, no kind of leaving him to just cry and cry for like an hour or anything. So I prepared myself really mentally for the challenge ahead and thought, there's no way I'm going to sleep, brought DVDs in. We moved Freddie out into our room because they were sharing a bedroom. And explained to Freddie, you know, you might hear Finn crying, but, you know, we needed to teach him to get to sleep. I just needed to do it. I didn't feel I was being cruel. I felt I was being kind. I felt I was being, doing what was not kind, that's the wrong word. I felt I was being responsible parents, looking after his development, because it was stunting his development. You know, he couldn't sleep at night. And, you know, then he wasn't performing well in the day, and I wasn't performing well in the day, and something was going to crack, and it was going to be me. So we did this the first night, 5 minutes in, and Evelyn explained to us, you know, kids are smart. They know how to, they're expecting a response, and they're going to escalate their crying to get the response. If you go in when they're at the most escalation, they're going to go, great, that's what works. So it's quite psychological sleep. She also explained to me that when you put a baby to sleep, the first, I think she said the first sort of 4 hours are the most important. You need a 4-hour slot of sleep to feel restored and for your body to do the restorative thing. And anyone who's got a baby knows, a baby that doesn't sleep knows that 4 hours sleep is just never happens. And she was saying, you know, the baby goes to bed around 7, the parents go to bed around sort of 3 hours later, and then the baby starts their wakeful period. So you're never getting that 4 hour sleep yourself as a parent. Then everything that comes of not having sleep, like anxiety, like, you know, even depression, like, you know, just not being able to concentrate, a feeling of kind of worthlessness, or a feeling of feeling sad all the time, that's all coming from the lack of sleep that you're not getting, even if you're trying to catch up in the day. And that your baby feels the same way. You know, your baby can be feeling the same way. So we did it. Evelyn told us not to expect instant results, not to expect this whole 3 nights. You know, you'll have a little win, then you'll go back and have a couple of difficult nights, then you'll kind of keep going. So we had to really commit to being in it for the long haul. And to be honest, I had to commit. I knew my husband could do it because he could sleep through the crying. You know, I couldn't sleep through one little noise, one little cough. I was wide awake. So first night, 5 minutes, I sat downstairs, Freddie was still up, and I was watching something or trying to distract myself, reading something. Went in after 5 minutes and said, it's bedtime, Finn. I think I led him back down again and walked out, and he obviously jumped straight back up and was crying. 10 minutes. I was okay, I just read something and was listening. To be honest, I was so used to him crying, and went back in there and said, you know, it's bedtime, Finn. Led him down, walked out, waited another maybe 3-4 minutes, and he went to sleep by himself. It had been 17 minutes. I was totally in shock. He slept the whole night until 5 a.m. I didn't sleep hardly at all. I was so wide awake waiting for him to cry. he just got it. He was 16 months old. He was well ready, and literally we didn't look back. We were so lucky. We didn't have the backwards and forwards. I was just really, really, really firm that I was not going to undo any of the work I'd done. Every single second of him crying had to count towards the end goal. I felt like if I'd given in one of those 5 minutes, it would have negated all that kind of stress that he and I had been put through. But he did it. He started sleeping through, and it was the best decision I made. It's made the biggest difference to my life. I don't think you can tell anyone to do it. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone unless you feel totally ready to do it. You'll know if you feel ready to do it. If you're feeling that you have no choice but to do it. And I feel that by comparing it to something that's done out of a personality disorder, or that's done out of hate, or that's done out of wanting to hurt somebody, couldn't possibly be comparable to something that is done out of pure love, pure mother's devotion, sometimes pure desperation. And by shaming those people who have made that decision for their own emotional well-being, even if it is a selfish choice, we need to make selfish choices. We're mothers, we're not martyrs, and we are people and we matter. And our children, there's not going to break the bond between them. Your baby trusts you and loves you, and you know you're never going to leave your child to the point where the baby's going to be damaged by it. If you do it properly, with support, with qualified support, or somebody like a child's sleep therapist like we did, anyone who's out there who's doing it, I did it. I'm not a bad mum. I'm not ashamed of doing it. I've got no broken bond with my baby over it. He's happy as Larry. He sleeps, he naps, he goes to bed. He loves going to bed now. It's a total different situation. We can socialise. I can talk to my husband again. I'm working. I stayed at work, and my career is still there. So, anyone who's doing it, I salute you for being brave and making your own choice for the well-being of you and your baby. Never feel that you're doing something awful. It's controversial, but it's not terrible. And leave me a comment if you're interested in any of the techniques that I talked about today, or you just want to join the debate. And I'm sure people will disagree with everything I said, and that's fine as well. I think that we're all mums, and we're all just doing what we think is best. Thank you so much for watching, and have a brilliant day. I'm wishing you good sleep for nights. Bye.